Hey, Newark, welcome to the conversation. Take off your jacket, pull around another chair. That's right, guys. Newark has begun talking around the issues of legalization and social equity. And where part of me is happy that the largest city in the state is taking this seriously finally, it really illustrates how behind and lacking my own hometown government is here in Irvington. Our favorite assemblyman, Jamal Holly, was in attendance, repeating almost verbatim my dialogue in the conversation we had when I took him urban equity, which is now social equity. And guess who else is on board? That's right, the big homie, DPJ. He co-sponsored a bill in Congress and has begun to use the language. I told him on Facebook exactly how proud I am of him. I catch a lot of flack for being a bit of a dick. People tell me all the time that I'm abrasive, but guys, we've gotten results, so this dick is gonna keep stroking. I told you in the beginning that this is about pushing electeds in the right direction more than making friends for personal gain. This mission has been about you and creating a somewhat decent future here for you and that little kid that wished I was his dad last summer. You guys deserve this. There is still the race element that many of these organizations are determined to lean on, and I'm uncomfortable with that, as well as the gender aspect, which I find especially abhorrent. As you should know, I prefer a geographical approach, opposed to the color of skin or gender, because neither of those attributes determine the person's character, and both are far too polarizing at this point. I'm going to be doing a reply video to Jethro James, so that'll be out right after this, but I want to make it very, very clear that this is all about the cash, funds, money, guap, moolah, paper, capital, resources, funding, liquid, assets, greenback, cheese. Look, they're not legalizing cannabis out of the kindness of their hearts. The state needs the revenue. It has nothing to do with righting the wrongs or easing up on the drug war. There is a marijuana enforcement agency in the legislation, for Christ's sakes. As per usual, please do all the YouTube things. Like, sub, share, speak. And with that being said, I'm going to leave you in the hands of the good people of North New Jersey. Love.
Round of applause, please, for all of you. Some of our esteemed clergy in the audience. I'm glad that they're here with us as well. I'm glad everybody else is here. See some of the guys from our regular meetings. I like to say, hold the line. And we know what that is. So, going forward, we need to have a real kind of robust discussion about these kind of issues that take place in our community. It's extremely necessary for us to do that. Many times we have not mastered the skill of having discussion with one another and figuring out how we move forward. I think it's important that we are able to do that, and we're able to do that in a way that's beneficial to our community. And not necessarily, we may not get nothing out of it personally, but our overall benefit of my goal is to make sure that our community benefits from what we are planning or not planning to do as we move forward in this state. There are a lot of people that are organizing around the state that are getting ready to do things despite or in spite of what we think or feel or believe. And we know that that has historically been the case in New Jersey, probably in the country. And so it's important for us to want to have all the ideas, all the facts, and be able to organize ourselves in a way where we're not victimized by other people's policies. That we make sure that we are not on the menu, but invited to the table. So that's important. I think this discussion tonight will bear that out. And we're going to be as robust with it as we possibly can. I always say that 100,000 flowers blossom. It's important to have all ideas at the table and let us discuss and debate and do whatever it is we need to do. Because ultimately, whatever we decide today is going to be with us for the next 20, 40 years to come. So thank you for coming out and being a part of this discussion this evening.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jamal Holly. I'm a state assemblyman in the 20th Legislative District in Union County. I am the assembly sponsor of the legalization of marijuana bill that Senator Satari originally introduced. My efforts and why I entered to thrust myself into the conversation of the legalization of marijuana is because when I realized it was going to happen in the state of New Jersey, no one was talking about social equity. No one was talking about expungement. No one was talking about providing minorities and women an opportunity to involve themselves in this particular industry. And so what I did was introduce the bill in the Assembly, along with my colleague here, Assemblywoman Angela Bennett from Jersey City. We have been extensively meeting with several interest groups around the state of New Jersey, pastors, mayors, state NAACP, special interest groups, to provide information and language to the speaker and to the Senate sponsor on what we believe would be a great start in discussing the social equity piece, expungement. I can't idly sit by as an African-American male when I see individuals who look like me in prison, in jail, and individuals who don't look like me are sitting in jail, incarcerated, and we not provide them an opportunity to have expedient expungements and an opportunity to enter back in the community and make productive citizens of this great state. So I'm here to discuss some concerns, some ideas as we continue to flesh through this legislative process with legalization of marijuana. It's going to happen in the state of New Jersey, and so we all need to be together as a community so that we are looked out after. Because those folks that were not at that table sometimes don't look like us, and we need to provide a voice and particular language in this type of legislation to ensure that our communities and our people have opportunities as well. So thank you for the invitation. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to the Reverend of this church, and thank you all for being here with us this evening.
I am the second prime on the bill that Assemblyman Holly just mentioned, and the failed war on drugs have happened to our community for many, many years. The industry isn't coming here because it's already here. And I want to make sure with Holly and with others that our black and browns, as well as others, are treated fairly. I want to make sure that we have a seat at the table, like the mayor just said. I want to make sure that our children are safe. So we have to make sure that we have education, the education component. We have to make sure that we do what's right for our community. We need to make sure that we can get a piece of that pie. So I sit here before you to let you know that I support you. And I support the legalization of marijuana, but it has to have decrim, and it has to have a social equity part. So whatever I can do, whatever we can do all together to ensure that this works for all communities, especially black and browns, I am here. So with that said, I'm going to pass it over to the mayor. Mayor, I thank you for allowing me to come here today, and now I'm going to give it to Virgil, right?
Thank you, Mayor, Assembly Member Holly, and Assembly Member Woman McKnight, Mayor Barack. Just like to thank you for allowing me on this forum tonight. My name is Virgil Grant. I'm one of the first owners and operators in the history of medical marijuana, 22 years ago, from out of California. But I'm here on behalf of New Jersey Minority Alliance. I'm not here on the California capacity, representing for the New Jersey Minority Alliance team, which was the organization that champions social equity. We were the ones who brought that to the forefront for the various different reasons that our representatives just spoke about. And so we're here to pretty much bring the educational platform here to the state of New Jersey to make sure that this thing is ushered in the right way. We fight against it for so long, and we don't know what we're fighting against. This is an adult use bill. Adult use is 21 and over. So there is no children in this conversation when we talk about adult use. And so we would love to have that conversation on how we keep that adult use. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of myself, the mayor, thank you for allowing me to be here, Assemblyman Holly, Assemblywoman McKnight. I'm an attorney. I've been practicing law here in Newark for the last 28 years or so. And during that time, I've had the unfortunate benefit of representing people involved in this failed war on drugs. And if you think back to when alcohol was illegal in the United States, during Prohibition, when alcohol was illegal in the United States, there were certain groups that were targeted more than others. Those people who were targeted included people that look like us in this room, African Americans. Now we are at the forefront of what appears to be the end of a new prohibition involving marijuana, the cannabis industry. And if anyone thinks that this is an industry that involves people selling on the corners or smoking on the corners, you need not only look at the former Speaker of the House, John Boehner, is on a board of director of one of the largest cannabis industries in the United States. The former governor of Massachusetts is on the board of one of the largest cannabis industries in the United States. So what does that mean? What that means is that there are going to be opportunities in New Jersey. On behalf of my law firm, as well as the New Jersey Minority Alliance, my thought was as follows. If we have been disproportionately affected by the war on drugs, the failed war on drugs, through arrest, through incarceration, then we need to be disproportionately advantaged if it becomes legal. And the mayor made a good point. No matter what you may think or what your ideas are, the fact of the matter is, it appears that cannabis is going to be legalized here in New Jersey. So if it is going to be legalized, what are we going to do? What opportunities are going to be available for people of color to benefit now from this legalization? Because I don't know anyone that owns any breweries in the alcohol business. Right. I don't know anyone that owns any distributorships in the alcohol business. But one of the reasons why we got together with New Jersey Minority Alliance, Dana Rona's back there, Muhammad Akil, with the Assembly people, is because we want ownership opportunities. Right. Not to be consumers, but ownership opportunities. In addition, we want to ensure that people who have been affected by the failed war of drugs still have an opportunity to participate in this business. So what we've done is created a social equity program that we think addresses those issues, that includes expungements of records. Because now, whether you know it or not, folks are being targeted for the smell of marijuana in their cars. I can't tell you how many cases I have where I represent people who are stopped by police, they're searched, because of the smell of marijuana. No marijuana is ever found. People are arrested in other circumstances, and as a result, we want to eliminate that as well. So we hope that through this discussion and dialogue, you will get information that will be able to have folks make an informed decision, and hopefully we will be able to impact everyone in a positive way.
My name is Diana Waynu. I'm the Policy Counsel with the American Civil Liberties Union of New Jersey, the ACLU. I want to start off by thanking Mayor Baraka and the Reverend of this church for opening up and creating this space for this dialogue. I remember having conversations with the mayor's office long ago, right? It's been a long work in progress to get to this point where we are comfortable having these conversations, and that we are now building space so that we can inform others to have this conversation as well. I also want to thank Assemblyman Hawley and Assemblywoman McKnight for their leadership in advancing and making sure that racial justice and social justice stays at the heart of this conversation, right? Because if we lose sight of that, and there are legislators who want to lose sight of that, there are legislators who say we need to take racial justice off the table. For us, that's a no-starter, right? That's dead on arrival, because as Ray has said, as others have said, the war on drugs was explicitly created to target people of color. And it's well documented too. Former aide to President Nixon admitted this. He said that we targeted hippies and blacks for marijuana and heroin so that we can criminalize them and vilify them night after night in the media. And that way they could raid the homes of our leaders and arrest people. And he said, did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. So with that in our history, there is no way that racial justice is going away. It's staying at the heart of this conversation. And so for the ACLU, racial justice has been at the heart of our campaign to legalize marijuana for adults, for those 21 and over. And some of the things that we're pushing for, some of the racial justice components that we are demanding to see in any legalization bill that is presented in Trenton: automatic expungement of people's records, so that people who have prior convictions or arrests for marijuana don't have to continue suffering the negative stigma or the collateral consequences of behavior that we're now saying should be legal. We also want to see fair access to the market, fair access to the jobs and the business ownership opportunities that are going to come when we build this industry here. And so we've been working with Ray and others to make sure that we are building a system of we're building a system and a structure that facilitates that encourages diverse applicants. Because we want the cannabis industry in New Jersey, we want to make sure that it reflects the diversity of New Jersey, right? We don't want to end up like other states, like Colorado, where they're just a select, like, too few people of color. One, exactly. One woman of color in Colorado owning a marijuana business. That can't happen in New Jersey. We also want to see money that's generated go back into the communities and fund programs that our communities have been starving for years. We want to see money go to education, to reentry programs, to job training, to adult education, to drug treatment and prevention programs. We want to make sure that regulation is developed so that we can minimize access to marijuana by kids. Because when you take things off, when you take marijuana off the street, you put it behind a counter that is regulated. That is how you prevent kids from accessing marijuana. You put in rules and regulations that say you have to show ID to get in this door. You put in rules and regulations that say that you have to develop child-resistant packaging. You develop rules and regulations around what kinds of products you can actually produce so that you aren't producing gummy bears. We know that that has been a failed experiment in Colorado. They learned from that lesson, and we can learn from that lesson too. And we can build legalization here in New Jersey that's done right, that incorporates racial and social justice from the get-go, and that protects our communities and protects our families.
Hello, my name is Hugh Byrne. Thank you very much for including me this evening. I am the president of the New Jersey Cannabis Industry Association. Our focus at the New Jersey Cannabis Industry Association is often the more technical matters of the industry architecture, etc. Interesting debate today about 1,000-foot setbacks from schools and 300-foot setbacks from schools. But fundamentally, what I have seen happen time and again, and the industry has not always been a friend of doing the right thing. But what has definitely been the case is that these nuances, the way, the how of legalization, I think the fact of legalization is upon us. The how of legalization is where so much is won or lost. All of these things that my co-panelists have mentioned are exactly right. How do we get ownership and capital formation, generational wealth occurring in the communities that have been pilloried and been the subject of the reason for prohibition for so long? How can the moral obligation to undo so much that has been done wrong take place when a lot of the confusion or the shifting or the loss of the opportunity happens in the way that the small details are worked out. And we can see it even in some of the debates that are around us as we think about that one big issue that I think we'll come back to, and that we see social equity programs attempting to address, which is very much about something as this term barriers to entry. Architecture causes costs to go up. It causes exclusivity. And as a result, it remains a very, very majority-dominated business at a moment in time when moral obligation is to include those that have been victimized for so long. So I definitely thank you for allowing me to come here, and I welcome the opportunity to help discuss any of those small, somewhat mundane details, but it's at that time where so much is lost, and in so much of what goes on in the fine details of any particular program. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's a real honor and a privilege to be here with you tonight for this very interesting and timely discussion around the legalization, decriminalization of marijuana. You know, as the mayor stated so eloquently, if you're not at the table, you're usually on the menu. And we have an opportunity here, as we see what has transpired across the country with examples in Colorado, California, etc., not to make the same mistakes and use them as test examples of which way we need to go in order to be successful here in New Jersey. I am one of the co-sponsors of the Marijuana Justice Act. Is H.R. 4815 by Representative Barbara Lee from California. And Senator Booker has the Senate match to the bill in the Senate. And what this bill does is decriminalization. I'll hit a couple of the main aspects of it. It would remove marijuana from the U.S. Controlled Substances Act, thereby ending the federal criminalization of cannabis. It would incentivize states to mitigate existing and ongoing racial disparities in state-level marijuana arrests. It would expunge federal convictions specific to marijuana possession, and it would allow individuals currently serving time in federal prisons for marijuana-related violations to petition the court for resentencing, and also create a community reinvestment fund to invest in communities most impacted by the failed war on drugs. Now, we have a unique opportunity here to get in on the ground floor as this is being created. We need all of you to stay vigilant in terms of what we need. You know, we're all great starters. We're all gung-ho. We can start something. It's the consistency of finishing and seeing it through to its inception. So we cannot let the same thing happen with this, or else we'll be on the outside looking in once again. So we have a unique opportunity with the public officials that are coming together, organizations like the ACLU and what have you, to do this thing right, to make sure that we are involved, that there are opportunities for entrepreneurs. We're also great consumers. We need to be entrepreneurs. Amen. We need to finally have an opportunity to make some money. It's inevitable. If you don't think this is going to be legal, I got a bridge to sell you. All right? Over in Brooklyn. We get it cheap. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. And I know there are a lot of people that have their reasons for not wanting to see it happen, and they have valid reasons. But it's going to happen. So we need to understand that and have it couched and created in the way we want to see it happen, so we don't end up on the bad end of another situation again. So I'm just here really to listen. I'm your representative in Washington. I'm really here to listen, so then I can go back to Washington and let people in DC know how my constituents feel about it, what they want to see happen. So I'm just really here to listen, but I just wanted you to know, everybody look up that bill. It's HR 4815 by Barbara Lee from California, and Senator Booker has the accompanying bill in the Senate. So thank you very much, and I'm really looking forward to hearing this discussion.
Good evening, folks. We're going to move into the question and answer portion. As you realize, we do have one microphone, so we're going to ask that we provide some order. If you do have a question for any of the panelists, I'm going to ask that you line up here to my right, your left.
Can we make a statement? Because this is all pro-marijuana. There's nobody on this panel, Mayor, with all due respect.
They were invited.
You didn't invite me. You know, I'm a senior advisor to Sam. I wasn't invited. I pastor. I lead the largest black congregation of ministers in this state.
We had Senator Rice. We thought that was sufficient.
He's in California. We talked this morning.
He told me that. But we thought that was sufficient, but he told us the last minute. Right. So if you do have a question, let him talk.
I don't need a mic. Everybody in this room just about. Everybody in this room
just about knows me.
Not really.
I'm Bishop Jethro James, pastor of Paradise, president, black ministers here. I've got a couple of, just a couple of questions. I respected you, please respect me.
Absolutely.
Couple of questions. Number one, in no bill that is even being considered, the bill's language says in this state that you can apply for expungement. That's what the language of the bill says. Our children, what we've learned from Colorado is that 57% of African American youth are charged now with possession. And if you were like me when I was a kid, and I've been in this city forever, when I was a kid, I did everything I was big enough to do. I'm sitting with the governor's people at the table talking about how does code enforcement do when it comes to loosies. The government people said to me, what's a loosie? How are we going to stop our children? How are we going to stop our children? That's the right question. How are we going to stop our children? Are you aware there are 28 cities in the state, including the governors, that said you can't sell it in my neighborhood? Are you aware that New Jersey leads the nation in low birth rate babies in the African American community? And smoking marijuana while you're pregnant, the THC, we need to go with the whole medical piece. You will have a child that is born with a disability. Who's going to pay and take care of that child? And the last thing, because I'm not on this panel, where are you going to work? You won't drive for transit. You will not be a police officer in this state. You will not work in the school system in this state. You will not work for PSE&G, Verizon, and believe it or not, you won't work at Home Depot or Lowe's because they drug test. There is no bill that's going to preclude you from being drug tested in this state. That's fact. And so there's money in poverty. And if I can keep generations of our children who can't work, because the cannabis industry is not going to supply enough jobs. The reality is that y'all are trying to sell them a bill of goods. We need to talk about health care. What you going to do? Because in Colorado, we're seeing a 70% increase, 70% increase in pediatric poisons from the cannabis being smoked. How many folks in here been trying to quit smoking cigarettes? None of us, okay. Some of us did. But the reality is that secondhand smoke poisons. The reality is that the New England Journal of Medicine just issued a report that by the time you're 35, if you smoke cannabis just about every other day, that you're going to find your heart and lungs going out. And so we really need to have some realistic discussion about our health. Last piece, state of New Jersey, insurance companies, automobile insurance companies, said that what they're going to do, they want 20% increase in insurance across the board, and if you're in a zip code that sells cannabis, they're going to ask for 35%. And I hear some of you talking, but the bills that the NAACP National is not supporting this. Black ministers like myself that have been around are not supporting this. And when we sat with the governor's people at the table, they have no idea of what urban America is all about.
Neither do you.
What was supposed to fix the school system, the lottery. Schools are in the same shape. This is another ploy to keep black people poor, in poverty, and never having a decent job or decent living. And as far as us, the fact is, and anybody up here, including you, sir, 99.5% of all the growers and manufacturers in the state of cannabis are white people.
If you don't take us seriously, it's because we turn everything into foolishness. Right. And so we get in because we're used to that, because some people's desire is to make a scene as opposed to build. Right. So if you're here to make a scene, you're at the wrong meeting.
Thank you, sir.
The scene making meeting is down the street. Sometimes they say at the council, but we're not doing that here. At the end of the day, people have a right to their opinion. Let them say it. And you have an open and honest dialogue and discussion like everybody else's community does. And then we make a decision about what we're going to do. You have to agree with the reverend, but you sure going to respect them while I'm here.
Thank you,
right? And vice versa, right? So I think you should respect me and everybody else, and I think you should respect him. I'm not going to demand respect for myself and allow him to be disrespectful. That's number one. Number two, I just think our kids are addicted to everything. And most of the things they're addicted to are legal already. I mean, some of the stuff that poisons them is sugar, right? All the things that cause heart disease, diabetes, bad diet, all those things are here in our community. Because we don't educate our folks the way we need to, because we don't have the infrastructure and the information that we ought to give them. At the men's meeting that we had a deep discussion about that. Nobody disrespected the brother. He got up and basically said 90% of the same thing that Reverend James just said. You know, and everybody heard him out. The point is, what we came to in the conclusion of that is that we have to be responsible for our own communities. Like, all of these things will always harm us because we don't educate our community, we don't have knowledge of self, we don't have institutions that are strong, we're not protecting ourselves, and we're certainly not wearing the full armor. If we was wearing that, none of these things would be able to affect us. So I just want to say that when you can't single this one thing out, because there's a whole bunch of other things that are 10 times or 100 times worse that are destroying our community, right? So I'm going to say that. Now, I don't want to be in a position to defend the effects of marijuana, right? Because I don't know. And I'm going to tell you this, most people don't. And I say over and over again that we need to get the data that says whatever it is that we need to help us or hurt us in making these decisions. But what I do know is this, is that these folks, in fact, they were trying to get this thing done by August.
That is correct. I called Governor. So you was there.
They were trying to get this thing done by August. Now that means it's going to get done in my mind. And all of the things that we need to have in place, we need to make sure they are in place. So we need to be sophisticated enough to have a debate, but be prepared. Right? And so at the end of the day, we cannot allow anything to be made law in the state of New Jersey without us present and accounting for it. That's it. Without policy, without revenue, without money, without education, without support, going into our communities the way, because we know what's going to happen. We need to make sure that we are not left out on a limb. Amen. And so I think it's just prudent for us to be serious about this discussion and begin to build something that's going to make sure that they're not running amok with this thing and we left with our lip poked out you know, because we're not involved in it in some capacity, or we're not getting the results that we ought to get. Suppose they make it legal tomorrow.
Right.
The education ain't in it.
That's right.
Your kids ain't in it.
That's right.
You being a part of it ain't in it. With all this stuff, we have to make sure that that's in it. So I am going to make sure my voice is heard on this issue, to make sure when these legislators say yay, 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 that I'm cool with the yay. And compromise means you might not get everything that you need, but I'm going to certainly, everything that you want, but I'm going to certainly get everything I need. Right? And that's important for us in this group. That's what I'm saying. So hopefully, I mean, we're going to go into the further of it, and people have a right to say whatever it is. You know, that's my belief. You have a right to say whatever it is you want to say. As long as you ain't telling people there's a fire going on in here, we got to rush out of here. At the end of the day, you have a right to say what you want to say, and I have a right to disagree with you. Thank God for democracy. I got a right to disagree with you. And so what we have to do is figure out what's the best route forward. So we want to open the floor to questions at this time.
How you guys doing? Thank you so much for creating this forum that we so desperately need in the community. And thank everybody here for coming here. It's a lot of support for a critical issue. My name is President. I spent a good deal of my time 3 blocks away, where I've seen almost every man in my family become incarcerated or die premature death due to this war on drugs. And my concern, just to piggyback off what the good Reverend was saying, is more so on the numbers and the money. Because bottom line, we know, everybody that grew up out here in New Jersey, and especially around here, that 2/3 of, or over 60% of the population of our prisons are filled with African Americans, people that look like you and I. We also know that this entire process, all of these owners are white male, and if we don't voice our opinions, then these next 6 dispensaries that are being allocated will continue that way. So my question is, from a number standpoint, I've heard that these facilities are making anywhere from $1 to $10 million a month, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if we annualize that, then that's anywhere from $10 to $100 million a year, right? If we apply investment banking principles, that means the value of these enterprises are anywhere from $100 million and up. So given that we're now creating the next Johnson & Johnson, the next Merck, these next pharmaceutical companies, what resources are available on the city and state level to ensure that those African Americans and those that have been displaced by this process have a fair and adequate treatment within the application process, which is, from what I understand, a black box and a real cloudy process that, quite frankly, the people that don't look like me that I've communicated with are just talking about paying lobbyists and all that stuff that we're not about to do, because we took too many L's for it and we need our fair treatment. So, who's going to help us?
Good question, good statement. I entered the legislature about 3.5 years ago, and I had the opportunity to visit Colorado with several legislators here and some special interest folks here. Went to California, went to Vermont, and went to DC. Visited just about every state that has the legalization of marijuana, all the different. And this bill, original bill, was introduced 4 years ago. It never had an assembly sponsor. It stayed in the Senate, and that's where it stayed. When I realized that this was going to happen, I thrust myself in a conversation. When you have a public policy issue, you can do one of two things. You could stand on the sideline and let them continue to do what they want to do, or you can thrust yourself in a conversation and bring forth issues that are a matter of concern to this issue, or whatever the issue may be. 2 weeks ago, the Star-Ledger did an article on my proposed amendments to the original Scutari bill. But let me just say this, Senator Scutari is a very good friend. He's the senator of my county. He is my county chairman. He brought the legalization of marijuana here for the conversation in the state of New Jersey. What I will tell you is that he is open to all the conversations and all the issues that we are discussing and that have been brought out tonight. It was my amendments that proposed a social equity program. It was my amendments that proposed expedited expungement. It was my amendments that took the general fund dollars that was going to go to the general funds to break it down so that it could be reinvested back in our community, such as job creation programs, such as education programs, such as the criminal justice reinvestment fund back into the community. So I'm all on board with every single issue that's thus far has come out, what the mayor has mentioned in previous forums that we've had in the ACLU. This is going to happen in the state of New Jersey, but as opposed to being so negative and opposed to it, we as a community have to come together, because when they see us fractured and divided, they are going to take advantage of that. And I've been in conversation with the governor's office, and the governor's represented here tonight, and I think that there was a comment that said that the governor's office doesn't understand what's going on in our community. And I disagree with that in a sense, because all the individuals that I have spoken to in the front office as it relates to the social equity program and the expungement have been very supportive of ensuring that this gets through. The backroom conversations right now is because the governor is very adamant about having a social equity program and an expedited expungement process here. So we need to all come together as one for our communities, because this is going to happen. My role as a legislator is to ensure that when we are in that back room, when we're at that table, that these matters are addressed. It hasn't been popular for me. The bill sat for 4 years in the Senate. Never had an assembly sponsor. It wasn't until I said, I'm going to thrust myself in this conversation with my colleagues who are in the Legislative Black Caucus. And let me just say something about Ron Rice, who is the head of our Legislative Black Caucus, who is opposed to this. You know, the press has a funny way of trying to pit each other against each other. I will tell you that you will not have one negative comment for me to say about Senator Ron Rice on his issue and his opposition. We are black men. But unfortunately, we just disagree on this issue. But we don't have to disrespect one another.
Exactly.
You understand? And
That's
so
exactly.
my goal is to ensure that because this is going to happen, when you have the Senate President, when you have the Speaker, and you have the Governor all on the same page, and it hasn't been all on the same page the last few minutes, but they're all on the same page with this. It's just how we get there. And so take a look at my amendments. It's a work in progress. I've been working very closely with the ACLU, the urban mayors, to ensure that we get the correct language so that when this does happen, that we are all protected. I will tell you that there will not be a vote that I will support if it does not have a social equity program, if it does have an expedited expungement, if it doesn't have a community reinvestment fund, and it doesn't have the needs that we need to ensure that our communities are protected. I'm involved with the cannabis industry, this guy to my right, this guy, the folks to my left, those that I see in Leo Blackshear, who is a brother in this industry. I want Leo to stand as well. Leo Blackshear, who is in this industry. And Bridgewater, who has been a constant advisor on this issue to ensure that our needs are met. So this is good, this is healthy. I think we should continue to have this dialogue, but at the end of the day, don't forget, and let's not miss the point, that we all got to come together on this to ensure that the issues and concerns that we do have for our communities are addressed and we're all in the same
Are you
page.
accessible? My question is, are you, one second. You've got questions and stuff.
Well, my question was, who's accessible?
Yeah.
Because it's like rhetoric, but in terms of being able to access.
Yeah. Don't worry, we'll answer that question.
Well, I called 100 times. It's like.
Okay. I just wanted to make it clear, based on what I heard you say, that this is a work in progress. There's still opportunities. As you hear this conversation, will help you craft your bill as well, your amendments to the bill, right? I just wanted everybody to understand. It's not a done deal. This will also allow you to add amendments and things that you hear in this conversation to craft that state legislation, correct?
Thank you, Congressman. As the mayor mentioned, they were trying to get this done not before August, it was before the budget deadline in June, July 1st.
First 100 days.
It wasn't until Angela and I and folks like Ron Rice who started to have public hearings that it started to slow up. And then when I dropped the amendments, and when Star Ledger posted it, the days started going back and back as folks was like, oh, this is never going to get done. Trust me, the longer we have to debate this issue and to make sure that our needs are addressed, the better for our community. I'm in a position where I don't want this rushed. We want to get it done. There's states who are watching the New Jersey model, because the New Jersey model is going to be the model to pivot this conversation on the legalization of marijuana. We're not going to take the statistics from Colorado, and I'm quite frankly, I'm tired of hearing about the Colorado statistics. Oh, this went up here, this one. Well, Colorado was the newest. No, California was the first in 1996. California was
medical. Let's frame the issue. Medical.
Rev, I'm appreciative that you're bringing out some of these points, but I want to put out the facts so that it's not a loss. It was California who was the first state. It was 1996. 1996, California had the legalization of marijuana. But the reason why you have these bad statistics that are coming from Colorado is because Colorado didn't do it right. When we went to Colorado, they said, please don't make the same mistakes as us. The reason why you have this high level of arrests and DUIs is because more people moved to Colorado over the last 2 years. That's right. So the arrest and the issues that are facing legalization of marijuana is only because the population is growing. But we need to peel away the layers and really put what our concerns are on the table and address those one by one. And as the first African-American state assemblyman to represent Union County, the 20th legislative district, I will tell you that in that room and in that caucus room, that what I hear out here is what I've been debating in that room. And so what I need you is to not be so opposed in a sense where we need to stop this, because we're not going to stop it, is to ensure that whatever it is that we need in terms of our language, whatever it is in terms of what we need in terms of opportunity, that we hear that and we are able to bring that to the table and bring that to the Office of Legislative Services so that we can get a good concrete bill to send to the governor so he can sign it at the end of the day.
Thank you, that was eloquently put. I want to address the brother's question directly. It's going to be vicious. The barriers to entry, they're high. They're pricey. Right. They're meant to lock you out. Of course. So I want to just address that directly. It is what it is. And so, as the assemblyman said, it's going to take you guys in the room to reach out to your prospective assembly members and mayors within your prospective regions, districts, to make that change. Because if you don't say nothing, if you sit silent, then things are just going to continue to go the way they have been going. If Assembly Member Holly didn't step up and inject himself into that, then it would have went the way it went. But it's not just the people you see up here on this platform. It's going to take all of y'all. And it's going to take your family members. It's going to take your church members. It's going to take everybody to stand up together and talk about the issues or bring the issues to the forefront. If anybody in this room wanted to get an application today, I have to say it's very ugly. Exactly. It wouldn't happen.
But it shouldn't be like that.
It's unfortunate, but it's going to take you guys to change that. And you guys need to talk to the people up here and change that.
So I just want to echo what Virgil is saying. He's absolutely right. That it costs a lot of money if you want to be in this cannabis space. But I really want everybody here to understand that when we're talking about the cannabis industry and the jobs that are going to be created, we're not talking about just growing and selling weed. There are a tremendous number of opportunities that are available outside of those two options. Because guess what? These businesses, they need construction needs, they have security needs, they have IT needs, they have cybersecurity needs, they have cleaning needs, they have photography needs, they have business marketing and advertising needs. All of these things, they don't cost nearly as much as it does to open up a marijuana grow facility. So we need to make sure our community members are open-minded and think outside of the box in terms of what is possible and where communities of color and poor people can actually insert themselves and be a part of the cannabis industry.